Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here from artplace.ca. Well, we're into our third day of a heat wave. I've got the air conditioner going, so let's work on another project. And I thought this would be nice to work on drawing a pair of cherries in colored pencil, because this is kind of a nice summertime fruit, especially in a drink. These are nice. Now, I'm doing this basically because I've been getting more frequently this week is requests for projects for younger people. When I say younger people, it's more of for my my young adult students. The majority of my online students are adults, and the majority of my face-to-face contacts are young adults. And so the key issue now is find something for my kid to do to keep them busy. Well, I thought I would basically work on this little project, polishing up on some skills, but in saying that, this project can be done by anybody. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using royal colored pencils today, because that's what I tell all my young adult students to go and buy. And because the colors are really, really good. The colors that they have available, you have to know color mixing. Okay? Although they do have a lot of nice colors, you do have to know some color mixing. The colors are not written on the pencil. And in one aspect, that's really good, because you have to look at the colors. So, we're going to be working on this, and what I like about the royal pencils is that they're very hard and they're amazing for detail. Okay, they're amazing for detail, so that's the reason why I'm going to use it for this. I'm going to be doing the drawing on Stonehenge paper, the white paper. Okay, and I have a little swatch aside so I can show you the color differences. What we're going to be doing with this particular one, we're going to be working the way that I always work, in layers, okay? And we're going to work with primarily warmer colors. So warmer reds, we've got some purples in there for the shadow, and some more of the yellow greens. So we're working primarily on between the red to yellow green side of the color wheel, and then we're just going to put purple in for the shadow. Okay, many people think that shadow should be black, and not necessarily, because purples are great even for painting with oils and acrylics. Purple is really nice for shadows. Now, the first thing we have to do is we have to get this onto our paper. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing this. I've provided a sketch, and with this sketch, there's a couple of ways. You can use the Art by Nature grid system. Okay, so you can grid this and then copy what's in the squares onto your drawing paper. And I've got a free video on my website at artplace.ca to show you how to use that. You can sketch it freehand, which is never a bad thing, because really, if you look at shapes, cherries are basically just two oddly shaped circles or ovals with sticks. That's really all they are. Okay? The other thing is to use graphite paper. Now that I think about it, I really don't show at all how to transfer using graphite paper, because unless it's a pet portrait, where then I use my proportional divider to measure and check proportions, and I use a ruler that's gridded and all that stuff, I don't use graphite paper. But I thought I better show it now, because that's what I tell my students to do. So I've already got a piece set. I've already got a drawing set up, and we're not going to use this because it's on sketch paper, but I use this as my sketch, and then I created my formal line drawing. So I've got a piece of Stonehenge paper here that I tore. And when I say I tore, I have a bigger sheet, and then I take a ruler, and then I tear the sheets to get this nice torn edge. Okay? And I usually tear it bigger than what I need, because that way, if the edges get damaged, then I can tear it smaller. And this is meant to be mounted onto another piece of paper, you can say rice paper or something, and then that goes into a frame. That way you see the torn edges. So, I've got a piece of graphite paper here. Okay, And what I like to do, and you can cut this into smaller sheets, but I basically lay it down. Don't slide it because you'll smush the graphite. And the thing with graphite, there's no wax in it, which is critical when you're doing any type of project. You cannot have wax in it. Then just lay your line drawing on top. Now I'm going to just put it more in the center. This is a demonstration, so I'm not going to be keeping this as a formal piece. I say that, then the pieces turn out usually really well. Okay? To transfer this down, all you're doing is going to go over the lines. Now you can use a stylus like this. What I like to do is I actually like to use a very, very sharpened pencil. That way I can see what lines I've missed. So for this particular example, what I'll do is, because I made the actual lines black, I'll use, let's say, I'll use a light blue. Now, so you've got the line drawing, and you could just make a photocopy it right out of the information, or you can put it onto tracing paper. You can take a photocopy of it, enlarge it or reduce it to whatever you have. Okay, so you're going to take that copy, put it on top of your graphite paper, and all you're going to do, very, very light pressure, you're just going to go over a few strokes. You're going to hold your paper down, lift it up, and check to see if you're using enough pressure, and I'm not. That's pretty good. Now, when you're doing this, one thing you have to be very, very careful of is that you're not pressing so hard that you're going to put a gouge in the paper. Okay? You just want it to be just like that. And then you're just going to finish the rest. Now, what I recommend as well is don't do this on your drawing paper that's part of a drawing pad, because a drawing pad will act as a cushion and will absorb a lot of the pressure, that way giving you a very fat line drawing. My table here I have is wood, but I have a massive sheet of glass on it. I'm going to mark out the highlight too. I have a massive sheet of glass, and that's what I use for my table because it's easy to clean. See how light that is? That's what you're looking for. Okay, you're looking for something that light. All right. Okay. I mean, you can see how easy this would be to draw freehand. Whoops, see, that's a little dark. That's a little dark. I'll have to erase some of that. And these pencils are so nice because they are hard, so they make that nice crisp line, and that's what you need. The last thing you want to do is use a dull pencil to make your transfer, because then your lines are going to be so fat. These are just guidelines. Okay? They're just guidelines. Now up here, this little doodad here, I like to just do them in zigzags. Just zigzag it. Then make a little top on it. Like that. Okay? Now, all the dotted lines represent shadows. Okay? So what I'm going to do is you can transfer them as dotted lines, or you can just leave them, and then we'll know that when we actually have to do our shading, we'll know exactly where they go. That's up to you whether you want to transfer them or not. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to put a couple of lines. Okay? And as well, the shadow under here, I'll do the same thing. Okay? Then the shadow for the stems. Like so. Let's check. Okay. Now, when you're ready to take your drawing, your line drawing, and your paper off your drawing paper, don't slide it, because you're going to slide the graphite. Just lift it up, like so. Okay, lift it up, put it aside, And then you're left with this. Now, this may be a little light right here, but not to worry, because it's once we get the drawing in there, like this is way too dark. This is way too dark. Once we get the drawing in there, you'll be able to see. There you go. You should be able to see that. Okay? Alrighty. Now, the first thing we're going to do is show you the difference between the paper. Okay? So this is the white that I'm using, and this is the cream. You can use any color you want, but because I want to show the true colors of the Royal Color pencils, is I want to work on white. And look at the beautiful colors that you can get with it. In saying that, I want to show you what happens when you want to, let's say we're going to basically work with cherries, if you work with paper that's a different color. Let's see, this should be, that's that color. Okay, so we'll just basically turn it upside down. Okay? So you have all these different colors. This is just scraps that I use when I'm finishing a piece. I will take the mid-red, okay, and I'm going to do some just back and forth strokes. I'm not doing any hatching lines or anything, just back and forth strokes, just to show you how the red shows up, because more often than not, people think that if they just use a colored background, that they could still use the same pencils, and you can't, because the actual background affects the color of your colored pencils. Okay, and then black. Now with the black, what I'll also do is I will grab, I will grab a yellow that's got a little bit of orange to it. So if you were doing this with paint, it would be like cad yellow medium. Look at that. Oh God, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Nice yellow there. So you can see, you can get some really creative looks with that. But see, the reds look different based on the color of the paper. That's why, especially if you're learning, oh, my microphone's caught. If you're learning, I highly recommend you just stick with white, especially when you're doing skill studies. Skill studies are done in a journal or your colored pencil paper, where you're practicing more technique. More formal pieces of art, you can, when you get more experience with how color will work with your colored paper, then you can change up the color. And I also have a video for that as well on, using different colors of paper with colored pencil. Alright, so I'm going to put that aside. And, oh, there was one more thing I want to show you. Between the Stonehenge paper, and I'll fold this in half, this is actual pen and ink paper. Pen and ink paper is extremely smooth, yet very thin. Okay, so I'm just going to tear the paper, and then what I'm going to do is I'll just show you as you layer. Okay, layering is something that's not taught enough with colored pencil. All right, so I've got my sheet of paper here, and it's more to compare to the Stonehenge paper because it's the type of paper you use has a direct effect on what you're going to do. And let's see, this time, I'll use the color I hate the most. I don't like green in anything. I'll just use green. All I'm going to do is just do some lines, and you'll be able to see exactly how different they look. Just going back and forth. So this is very, very smooth pen and ink paper. Okay. I'm just going to tap that dust off there. And then I will do the same thing now with Stonehenge paper. The Stonehenge paper is much more porous. It accepts a lot more of the actual pigment in the colored pencil. It's much more porous. Okay? And then you can, as well, you can layer over this. Okay? You can layer over this as well. Alright? So I just want to show you that, because sometimes I get people emailing me, I followed your instructions, but the drawing that I did on my photocopy paper didn't work out. Well, of course it didn't work out. You have to use proper, you have to use the proper supplies. Now as well, a kneadable eraser, okay? And if you have, this is a nice little size sanding block. This is also from Royal, and you can actually sand the tip. So once you actually sharpen your colored pencils, okay, then you can further sharpen them right here, okay, to bring them to a really, really fine point. All right. Now for this particular workshop, we're not going to use a blending stump. Okay, we're just going to basically use our pencils to layer and then to burnish. So with a line drawing on there, and basically what I'm going to do is, as I get closer to the edge, I'm going to, at some points, take my kneadable eraser and just lightly press to remove some of the graphite. It works out beautifully. Okay, you're just going to lightly press to remove some of the graphite. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to lightly, with a sharpened pencil, back and forth, very lightly, and I'm going to go around the cherry. Okay, and those dotted lines are for the shadows. I'm just going to lightly take those out. Another thing, see, I keep forgetting to tell you this. Put a piece of paper under your hand while you're doing your drawing. Okay, that way you won't transfer the natural oils from your hand onto your drawing. Lightly, lightly, lightly. I'm not pressing, but my pencil is very, very sharp. Okay, I'm not using my touch push lift for this. I'm just basically lightly going back and forth, because all we're doing right now is we're putting our first layer, which I call the underdrawing. When I teach actual painting, I call this the underpainting stage. We're blocking in all our color. This is sort of like our foundation. If you push too hard, you're going to groove the paper. As well, think of how you polish a car. You buff it. If you push too hard with colored pencil, the same thing happens. That you actually burnish the finish, and it becomes very, very shiny. What you're doing is you're pushing all the pigment into the paper. Now this pencil here is more the red-orange type. And for those of you that have been following me, do you remember what you should be doing every time you try colored pencils? Make yourself a swatch. And accompanying this video, I have swatches for these, but you should not be relying on my swatches for color. You need to make your own, because when I make up my own swatches, it's based on my lighting, my studio lights, and when you print it out, all printers work differently. I could give the colored pencil swatches to 10 different people who have 10 different printers, and it's going to print 10 different ways. So it's always best to have your own personal handmade swatch for your colored pencils. See, I'm just going round and round and round. This is the way that I basically get beginners to start with their colored pencils, because they can see results immediately. Okay. I also had somebody email me asking if you can dissolve these, use these in a wet format. You can. I don't particularly like telling people with a colored pencil how to dissolve it. The way that I do it is I use odorless terpenoid to dissolve it. It's like a solvent. What I like to tell people, especially young adults, is I just prefer having them work with the pastels, cute little royal pastel sticks, and basically from there just to, to use, let's say, Spectrafix, which is a non-toxic fixative that you can use inside a classroom. And if you don't want to fix it, well, I don't tell my young people this, but my older students know you can just use pure rum or pure vodka to dissolve it. I remember one time I was doing a Watch the Artist, is where I paint live, not as a class, but I'm working on a studio piece, and I just put the camera on, and I had vodka on my table. People thought, oh, she's having a party. And no, I was using it to dissolve my pastels. Okay, so there's one. Now I'm going to do the other one. Okay, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to knead this to a nice fine point. And just touch that. And just touch that. And now, when I come over here, I'm going to be very precise on the line, the outline here. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing. Using my round strokes, I'm basically working from the outside in. And when I actually teach graphite, I do it a completely different way. It also depends on the type of project that I'm teaching. This project is geared more to beginners or somebody who's been in, out of the field of colored pencils for quite a while and just kind of want to refresh their skills. This is just one way. Everybody does it differently. This is a method that I teach that works for my students. Ooh, I pressed a little hard there. And I'm not going to work because that's a shadowed side. Back and forth, lightest pressure, and basically you should not see when you're going over the strokes, you should not see where one stroke starts and another stroke ends. You will only get hard edges if you press too hard. And if you press too hard in hopes that you're going to make your drawing go faster, it doesn't work that way. Nice and smooth. So if you're a girl and you wear eyeshadow, think of what would happen if you were to press really, really hard on eyeshadow. It would be really dark and your eye would hurt. Your eye would hurt, but it'd be really, really dark. Use a light pressure, because the key, you start light, you can always add more pigment. Pigment is the actual color in here. You can always add more. It's much more difficult if you've pressed really hard to remove, because if you've burnished it right into the pores of the paper, it'll be very hard to get it out. It's much easier to add as you go. Going round and round. I know this may sound tedious, but you know what? Just try it. Just try it. Start from the outside and work in. We're just doing our underpainting, underdrawing. Now, if this was done using paint, I would just be blocking it in with a, number 10 bright brush or something and doing that. There we go. Light, light, light. We're almost there. This is the red-orange. It's not a intense red on the color wheel. It's closer to the orange. If I had to put a name on this, and that's going to actually be an art journal project I'm going to make up as creating your own color names, I would call this Cad Red Light, if I had to put a color to it. So that'll give you a good idea about where it belongs on the color wheel. So these pencils are actually good. It really forces you to look at the actual color. Too many times there's too many rules. You have to use color A and you have to use color B. Now, when working on your own particular art project, I suggest using whatever colors you want. But when you're working with a skills project, in order to get a certain color, and you're practicing with some color mixing, then yeah, you might want to follow the instructor's recommendations. Like with this one here, it's stroke and technique and layering. But if you want to make your cherry, green, do it this way first, and then try a different color. If you want to make it black, blues and black look great. Okay, there we go. So we have that. Now, it was a little hard on the outline here, but that's okay. So that's with the red-orange. Now, I'm going to take the green that's the lightest green, and it's a nice yellow green, and if I had to put a color name on this, I would call it phthalo yellow green. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to color in the entire stem, but at the same time I'm going to start removing some of the graphite like so. Now, one thing I didn't cover. If you didn't have actual graphite paper, you can make your own, right? It doesn't even have to be with graphite paper. If I have this sheet of paper here and I wanted to make this into the actual graphite paper, I could take a nice little pastel stick, rub one side, then take tissue and blend it in and dust off the balance and use that as my transfer paper. That works as well. Okay, just remove the graphite. Remember, don't press too hard because removing colored pencil is much more difficult than removing graphite. Dot, dot, dot. There we go. Okay, and that's the green, the yellow green, and the doodad at the top, I'm going to use the lightest brown, and this brown, if I had to put a color name on it, would be burnt sienna. And I'm just going to zigzag, and I'm not going to worry about covering all the graphite lines, because you'll see why. And at the top, yeah, I can just basically just color in that triangle. If I go outside the lines, I don't care because it's a really rough thing here. Just like so. All right, put that aside. Now the shadow on the bottom, I'm going to start the shadow. Where's my pencil? You know what? I'm missing a pencil. Oh, there's my blue. I'm going to start the shadow with a gray, and it's just a mid gray. Okay, it's just a mid gray, and going across. Starting here now, I'm not going back and forth way, but touch, push, lift, touch, push, lift, touch, push, lift. Okay, so I touch the pencil like an airplane. I come down and it's the airplane landing. Now the airplane is taking off, so it's leaving the runway and it's taking off, and I lift it off the paper. And what this gets me is a nice hard stroke in the beginning, but it's tapered as I lift the paper. And I like this stroke because it makes it easier when I want to vignette something, like when I want to soften it on the outside edge. And and the stems too. I'm going to color in these stems. They're done the exact same method with the colors as the pencils. Okay, now the circle here, I'm going to go the other way now. Now if you happen to go too far outside the line, you can just take your eraser and just drag it. Don't press too hard though. Creates a nice light layer, and you're going to do the same thing here. Let me touch over that. Oh, I think I removed too much. I can't see. Okay, let me just turn this up. Sometimes I find it easier to turn my paper to make my strokes, and you should do the exact same thing. Okay. I'm going to have to go back and forth right here because it's so small. There we go. And I'm just going to go right between the cherries. Okay. Like so. Okay, here we are. Now we've got this nicely set. Alright, then I'm going to put the gray pencil down. Now we're going to work our second layer, and we're going to go to the red that's just a little bit darker than the one we have. And now I'm going to do the same thing. Now I'm going to go to the outside, and I'm just going to with a little bit more pressure, not too much. I'm just going to go over this. This is how we blend, we do our color mixing, is that as we layer colors, the layer that's below shows through with the layer at the top, and the colors blend together. Now I'm doing this for the brighter areas of the cherries. This area right here, which I erased all the graphite, will be a much darker color. And then here, same stroke, that hasn't changed. Okay. Follow the direction, the growth direction of the cherry, its curves. Alright, follow its curves. This is all with a darker red under here. I am going to go here with this a little bit here. There's a reflective shadow, reflective light I should say, coming down here. Now I'm not going to go over all the elements of shading and lighting in this. That's like more dry. I do have a video on that as well. So if you're interested on the actual elements of shading and highlighting, you can check that out. Okay. And then right here, there's a little bit of a color shift here. You may say, oh my God, you covered up the highlight. That's okay, because we're going to pull that out with our eraser. Okay, I'm going to leave that, and then I'm going to take a darker red. Okay, the much darker red, which now this pencil here that I used the second time, I could classify that, let's say, as even cad red medium. And the pencil that's even darker, I could classify that as alizarin crimson. You notice that the colors I'm using match perfectly to my Art by Nature palette of pigments, the colors that I typically use in wet painting. Okay, a little bit darker. Now you may wonder, why didn't you put that red all over the place? I'm going to, but I want to build a shadow first. Watch. This is where it comes to the layering. So I've got that dark red in here. I'm going to go back to that medium red. And I'll go over that. And this gives me a deeper red. See? It gives me a deeper red. Whoops, I pressed too hard there. Actually, that's what we're going to end up being. That's a very hard shadow here. I just pressed a little bit too hard there. Now, the other thing too is when you're doing this design, try not to do it too big or you'll take forever. I had a girl here and she made it huge. Like the whole one cherry was the size of this piece of paper, and she was so tired by the end she was finished. Her piece looked really nice, but she was really tired. See how much nicer how deeper a red that is? Okay. Now, if you graphited, that's good lingo. If you graphited the shadow mark, so you're basically just going to go into that area. All right. Now you're going to repeat the same thing here. Now, the darker red is just going to be up here a little bit, down here a little bit. There's very little of this one being used, and just here, okay, here, and here. And everything else is this red right here. So you're going to put this medium red over the entire cherry. Now you do need that medium red because we're going to actually be darkening this cherry here even more, which is going to put this one right behind this one here. So this is the layering. So we're layering colors on top of each other. And that gives you a very, very soft effect. So if you were to do fruit, think of peaches. Peaches would be nice. But if you want to turn your peaches into nectarines, or basically fuzzy cherries into smooth cherries, we burnish, which fuses the colors together and makes everything shiny. Yeah, it's not makes everything shiny, it gives it a finished look. Sorry, that was not really the right Okay. Nice and slow. And the burnishing step fuses everything together. Come around this. Make sure you follow the directions of the cherry. That's why cherries are nice to do. Cherries, apples, because they're round. And believe it or not, this round strokes like this are a little bit more difficult to not to master, but people tend to want to go up and down. There is a way you can actually draw this using just up and down strokes, but it would take you five times as long. Okay, see how we're getting there? And when I'm done this layer, I'm going to sharpen my pencils. That's the key. You have to have sharp pencils all the time. Okay, and I'm going to take my dark red again. Darker red. I'm just going to refine that edge here. So everywhere where you see a much darker red that's shadowed, you're going to put that in. Okay, and I have to fix that. That's a little too far. Oh, see, there we go. Go back over with the medium red, over that dark red. And it's all about layering your colors. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to sharpen my pencils and I'm going to go up to the stems. Alrighty, I'm going to take now the green that's a little bit darker than the one we just used, and I'm going to do the same thing here now, and I'm just basically now going to be putting it on the inside of the stem. This is almost like where it's shadowing. Okay, so here and here, very, very sharp pencil. If I had to assign a name to this, I could call it, oh, I don't know. I don't have a green like that. So it could be as lighter than the sap green. Looks like evergreen. Okay. Now go back to that light green again and go on the outside edge. Just putting another layer of color. Be very careful you don't press too hard. Okay, and then on this side as well. We're going to be coming back. The stem is really easy. We're going to be coming back with some brown to add some shadows onto that. There we go. Alright, now we're going to, what are we doing? We're going to go to a darker brown. Okay, we're going to zigzag in between the lines. So we're going to go right in here. We're just going to put a little line here, a little line here. We're kind of filling it in like that. And this dark brown in here creates the shadows. We'll just put little nubs here and there, like so. And you're going to bring a little of that dark brown right in the bottom. This is the stubby that joins the stems together, which is what's really attached to the tree. Okay, I'm going to put that dark brown back, get that light brown, and right about in the middle, I'm going to put a little bit here, and a little bit at the bottom. Okay, and some here. This is where the stems aren't all bright green. Sometimes they're old and they're distressed. And okay, we're sort of glazing. I went too far. like so. Okay. So anywhere where you want to kind of cut down the brightness of that green, you're just going to put a little bit of brown over it. I'm going to put that back. Now the shadow part now, we're going to intensify the shadow part now, and we're going to probably start burnishing a little bit, because really the only step to be done after this is to add another layer of for the cherries and burnish them together. Alrighty. Oh, my microphone keeps getting caught. I apologize. Okay, so now we're going to work on the shadows now. So we started out with the gray, so now we're going to go with the purple. Okay, and obviously this could be called dioxazine purple. And I'm just going to touch, push, lift, right at the very edge of that cherry. Okay, nice and dark. You can see how that really pushes that back. This is how to get a nice clean edge. Do this nice and slow so you don't press too hard by accident. You're going to be doing this touch, push, lift everywhere where we want that edge to be clean. So we did it there. Now I'm going to go here, because shadows don't fade out, not in this one anyways. And it actually comes down, so this actually has to come up a little bit. There we go. Okay, you see that? And this actually comes out like this and like this. And I can always erase it after. You can use electric erasers, kneadable erasers, you can use vinyl erasers. I've even had, when I've given challenges out to my students, they've cut their designs out, which made for a really, really nice design. Now I'm on a bit of an angle there. Let me see if I can go back this way. You got to turn your piece so you're comfortable. Okay, is that shadow close? Nope, not even close. I'm going to come right out a little bit more. See, I lost my line drawing, so I'm going to freehand this part. And getting this in here. That's closer. Okay. I'm going to come in, I'm going to push a little bit harder for another layer. So I'm putting 2 layers of purple down. Just a little bit harder, not too much. If you push too hard, you're going to burnish. We're going to burnish with the gray. Sometimes I will burnish at the end, and sometimes when I know I'm not going to be working on an area again, I'll burnish right away. Okay. Just going to clean up that edge. I'm going to kind of mold my little kneadable eraser to a nice point and just kind of clean up that edge there. Okay, you're going to do the same thing here. Now this one here, when we burnish with the gray, we're going to be putting more focus on the real heavy shadowed areas. Went too far there. And once you burnish, erasing is very hard. Very, very difficult. These are nice and sharp pencils. I love working with hard pencils when I really want to get good detail. There we go. Just going to turn this a bit. I just need to round this out a little bit more. Okay. Another layer of purple, pressing just a little bit harder, not too much. We're not ready to burnish yet. Awesome. Now this little part here, I'm just going to kind of lightly round that out a little bit more. This is called cross hatching, when you're making a stroke completely opposite to what's down there now. That's called cross hatching. See, it just deepened it up. I'm going to do the same thing here now. A cross hatch, go opposite the stroke. What this does is it gets additional pigment in between all the strokes. Now this shadow here is fairly dark, with only this part here being light. So I'm really just kind of going to cross hatch probably to that area right there. Okay, and in here I'm going to, oh, I didn't bring that shadow out enough. I'm going to cross hatch right under here. I'm going to ask Joe if he can take me out for a cherry sundae. You know what he'll say? No. There we go. I remember growing up on the farm, we had cherry trees. Oh, wow. So see how we're deepening up the value now of the shadow? This is where it's really dark. And this part just kind of fades out. This is the intense shadow right here. See that? I'm not even pressing hard. The pressure is not changing. It's the more layers of pigment that you add, the deeper it's going to get. And I can cross hatch again, now going opposite to that last stroke. See? There we go. And basically you're going to apply the layers until you've got a nice dark shadow. Okay. And here just a little bit. Really focusing on that contour. Like that. Alright. I'm going to put the purple away. Now I'm going to bring out the gray. Now with the gray, I'm going to go over it a little bit with even a little bit more harder pressure. This tones down the intensity of the colored pencil. Be very careful now. I'm pressing a little bit harder. I'm going to go round and round here to get that nice round corner. Okay, see how it's cutting down the purple? Don't press too hard, but press a little bit harder. And this is going to fuse all the layers of colored pencil together. Burnishing is very hard to erase, so make sure you erase all your lines first. Like any smudges or whatever you've got. There we go. See? Kind of brings everything together. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. Focusing where it's really dark and bringing that down. The gray just cuts the purple down. Don't press too hard. You're going to gouge the paper, but press hard enough so you're fusing everything together. And if you get to the point where, let's say you accidentally press too hard and you're no more colors going down, you can try putting a little bit of fixative on there, like a workable fixative. For colored pencil and graphite, I tend to prefer using Krylon workable fixative for myself. Okay, but it is toxic. For my formal artwork, I use that because it has to go into a portfolio. You can use Spectrafix, which is ideal for indoor use. Just make sure that you spray off your paper first, then you can come over and spray on your paper. Okay, I've got some smudges here. I'm just going to erase that off. That comes off a piece of cake. There we are. Alright, so now I'm going to come in and I'm going to now not go to the cherries. I'm going to go back to the top of the stem now. And I'm going to go back now with that light brown, and I'm just going to re-emphasize the areas in here, again using the zigzag stroke. And I'm just going to look at that. That actually looks pretty good. Put the light brown back. Now I'm going to go to the middle red, and this is now where I'm going to start adding a bit more pressure. Same strokes, a little bit more pressure. You see how everything's fusing together? This is where all the layers come together. You can use the hard pressure from the beginning. The problem is that if you don't get the right color balance, you won't be able to add any more color because you've burnished everything together. Okay, I'm going to take the dark red and now I'm just going to go over here a little bit. And what I'm doing is if I could mix these two pencils together to make one color, that's what I would use. This is for that dark part of the cherry that's in the back. Okay, and then this part here comes out like this. Alright, take that middle red. Oh, you know what I'm doing? I'm rotating the paper right on top of the drawing. I'm going to put my hand on top of my hand. There we go. That's for the lighter part of the cherry, and there's a little bit of a darker part right here. Whoops. What pencil is that? That's the gray. I don't want gray. I want the dark, 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 dark red. See, just deepen that a little bit. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sharpen this pencil. Okay, let's just sharpen my pencil. There we go. See how beautiful those colors are becoming? See that? And I can come back here. I'm just going to make this a little bit darker. So if you've followed me with painting, and especially even if you're one of my, let's see, young adult art students, color mixing with these Royal pencils should be a piece of cake. Okay, now here, the stroke actually goes about like this. Okay, so we're just going to basically shorten down the curve. Does that make sense? Shorten down the curve, straighten the curve, like so. Look at that. Okay. And typically, I find some people just doing this. You have to work through the stroke, follow through. Okay. Now there are parts of the cherry that are kind of blemished. With those, you can put little dots and stuff like that. Take your time. And the more layers you put on, what you're doing is you're ensuring the pigment actually goes into the pores of the paper. I couldn't do this with, that pen and ink paper, because the paper was so smooth, it didn't have anything to hold the pigment. And the pigment, think of this pencil as actual pigment, which is the color glued together with something. Okay, the pigment is the actual color. Look how beautiful that is. Oh my goodness. Come in with a little bit of the dark red. Just going to lightly go over that. See, I can still add plenty of pigment on that. Plenty of color. I'm going to darken this part up a little bit more right here. There's quite the shadow there. Okay. I will come in though at the end, and there is quite the bump on the photograph, but I will come in and touch that. Now here I'm going to take my kneadable eraser, and I'm just going to touch a little bit here, because this is light, because it's reflected light right there. I'm going to go back to this one now, and now it's time to just work from the center, and now work up. And you can do the touch, push, lift stroke for this part if you want, because we're starting at the outside edge. The touch, push, lift stroke, what I call my airplane stroke, is a stroke that you really should be mastered. I'm going to turn this so you don't have a shadow. I'm just going to go in right at the bottom there. Look how beautiful that is. Oh. You know when you start colored pencil and you kind of go, oh God, because it's just all choppy like this. But when you start burnishing, putting a little bit more pressure down onto your colored pencil, the colors just fuse together, and they're just so beautiful. Okay, right here is where it's straight. Okay, then you start going the opposite way now. Now, I'm only going to go the opposite way close to the top. Start at the top, then I'm going to work my way down, because I still have to put a darker red on this. So you see what I'm doing here? Okay, so following around. And you have to make sure, I'm just going to quickly sharpen my pencil. You have to make sure that your pencil is sharp all the time. Because if it's not sharp, all you're going to do is put pigment on the top layers of the paper. So in saying that, Gisele, what the heck are you talking about? I'm going to pick a black pencil. So think of this paper. This is paper. Textured paper has little peaks and valleys in it. That's what makes it textured. With these colored pencils, what happens is that if your pencil is dull, all you're doing is, actually, let me get a orange pencil. All you're doing is putting pigment at the top if your pencil's dull. Okay, because these are microscopic, these textures. So your pencil is just going at the top. Because think of a flat pencil. Okay, so if you're just doing this with your flat pencil, your pencil's only hitting the peaks. But if your pencil's sharp, you're going to be doing this. And this is where you start adding, oh, what else can I pick? Let me pick another one. Where you start adding layers and layers of color. And eventually they start filling up all the holes. Okay, does that make sense? So that's why it's important to always work with a sharp pencil. There we go. Pastels though will give blah 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 blah. Pastels will give you a completely different effect, and I will have a skills technique video with pastels too. There we go. Look how beautiful that is. Okay, so you see that. I'm going to be careful when I go going close to here. I'm going to be doing that mostly with the dark red. Okay. Now, with the dark red, now is where you have to be careful. I'm going to touch, push, lift, following the strokes going around, making sure that I don't touch this cherry. But I don't want to draw a line. I want to make sure that I follow the strokes. Anytime you draw, if I were to draw a line like this on this cherry, it's going to look like it's outlined. If you do the touch, push, lift, it works out really well. Now to finish that off though, I will take this pencil on this cherry now and just reinforce that edge. Like so. Just want to reinforce it. See? Oh, and I went just outside a little bit here. Oh, I wasn't paying attention. I'll have to erase that after. Okay. Come in, and there's a reflection here, so I'm just going to put this light red right here. Really getting a nice crisp edge. Refining that. Nice crisp edge. And going to come now with the darker red. This is reflected light. It's the light that's reflecting off something else. This is dark right here. When you're burnishing the darker areas, be very careful. It's especially with the dark colors, if you put too much dark down, you can't lighten it up. I'm using a little bit more pressure, but not too much pressure. Because I'm still going to come in with that medium red. See? Right in here it's darker. I'm just putting a layer here. Let's see, and it comes in like this. Okay. Let's see. Just looking around, make sure I've got my lines right. It's shadowed right here. Actually, not shadowed. The actual cherry is dark. Right here. It's very dark here. Okay. Go with the medium red now and go back over it. Let me just turn this. What this does between the two colors, it makes it such a deep red. Makes it a beautiful deep red. Nice. Now I'm going to leave a little uncolored area here for the highlight right there. See that? You can also take an eraser and lift out that highlight. There we go. Okay, then we're going to repeat that on here as well. This one's a little bit easier because it's primarily more of this color here, except over on this side. Am I in the way? No. Beauty. See, just a little bit more firmer pressure, not too much. We're not burnishing yet. Just gonna sharpen my pencil. And the more layers of pigment that you actually put down, the sharper your pencil has to be. And let's see, this goes out this way. Actually, this is a darker red. This actually comes out like that. Right to here. That's a heavy, heavy, heavy shadow. That's got to be dark. If I had to look at it with my eyes, if I was squinting my eyes, it looks almost black. Like so. Okay. And this goes all the way around, and we have to add a little bit more shadow here as well. I'm going to turn this just so it's easier for me to color. Be refined with your strokes. Okay. You can see with a little bit more pressure, the color really starts to take shape. I'll leave a little bit of highlight here. Actually, the highlight's not there. The highlight's right here. That's where the highlight is. When we burnish, we're going to go over with the red-orange pencil. Where you fuse everything together. You see how that's really intensifying? So I'll have to do this so I don't get in the way. Right in here is where everything kind of straightens out, right in here. Okay, you can go back with that deeper red, take a look where you've got the really, really dark edges. Right in here, it's very, very dark right here. Almost black. Now what I'm doing right now, using more pressure, now I'm burnishing. Very slow, much more pressure, and fusing everything together. And if you use paper that's too thin and too cheap, you'll actually rip the paper. Be very deliberate when you're making your strokes. Know exactly where you have to go. So it's just the dark areas of the cherry where it's very heavily shadowed. Right around here, I'm just going to kind of go circle, circle, cross hatch as well. There's a lot of texture in that cherry right there. Okay, this one here. On the entire right side. Where it's very dark here, but then it's just a little bit lighter here, but darker than this. It's all about layering. I'm going to turn this. So colored pencil isn't a fast thing to do. I mean, not if you really want. If you're doing it for, if you're doing it for art, like serious art, it's not a fast thing to do. But just to do general sketches, yeah, it's really fast, and it's great if I'm working on, let's say, a pet portrait or something, where I just want to quickly just block something in. Yeah, colored pencils work great, but you can really refine by taking your time. It's the same thing as painting. If you only take 15 minutes to do a painting, well, it's going to look very different than if you do that same painting and take 2 hours to do it by refining your strokes. Okay, take the medium red. It's going to go back over. With the medium red, I'm pushing a little bit harder right over this dark area, fusing the colors together. See? Now, I'm going to go right here. I'm going to cross hatch this. I'm going to cross hatch this part here, okay? Because then for this light area here, oh, my microphone's in the way. I'm going to use the red orange. Cross hatching is drawing in the opposite direction to what you've had. Like, think of a tic-tac-toe board, but you can cross hatch in diagonals and stuff like that. Okay, it's really coming into play. Now, the red-orange in the highlighted areas, not the highlight, but the highlighted areas. And you're going to use firm pressure, and you're going to burnish everything together. You'll also find that when you burnish, those little specks of paper that we're showing disappear. I typically like to burnish colors with a lighter pencil. If you burnish with a darker pencil, sometimes the burnishing is very visible. You can see that it's just heavy color. See? Look at the difference. So that's why I like burnishing with a lighter color. But as well, the lighter version of red is orange. Now, in saying that, if I were to come in just with an orange, this would make the cherry quite bright on this side. Right here. See that? There's too much confusion when you're taking red. Let's say you want to make a light red. People always tend just to add white. Adding white doesn't make red lighter, it turns it into pink. Okay? If you want to make a red lighter and brighter, add orange to it. Look at that. It's getting close to time for me to sharpen my pencils again. You'd think that would be a white spot, but it's not. There's actual color in that. Coming in, going over the entire cherry. And it harmonizes everything together. Crosshatch. Cross-hatching is useful when you just want to even out the tone. See? I'm going to go over the shaded areas a bit. Still with that burnishing, even though it's a lighter red that I'm putting down, it's still burnishing the colors together, fusing them into the paper. Now, if you ever have as well with your colored pencil, if you find that sometimes your colors, with colored pencils, it's like a bloom where the wax comes through the top, put some fixative on there, and that'll help. But colored pencil as well, it should always go behind glass. The only thing that really doesn't need to be framed is oils and acrylics. There we go. Now, see the difference between the two? Big difference. Big difference. And I'm going to take now the same red, the red-orange. I'm going to come over here now. With firm pressure, I'm going to burnish this now. You can get burnishing tools. I mean, heck, you can burnish with a stylus. It's just pressure. You can burn it. You can get clear burnishing tools. I used to use those, but I find that I can get much nicer color when burnishing with an actual pencil. I mean, look at that. It's just the pressure. Okay, it's just the pressure. This is going to be, I'm going to burnish this with the medium red because I want to keep that dark. This is where it goes straight. I'm going to cross hatch this to even out the tone. Okay. And I'll have to erase, I covered up the highlight by mistake. Okay, I'm going to go over the medium red, with the medium red now, with a firm pressure, to burnish the shadow area. It's quite heavily shadowed. Okay, I'm going to turn this way. There we go. I'm just going to touch up this edge right here. There we are. Look at that. Now I'm going to go back over, forgot to do the stem here, I'm going to go back over the shadowed stem. Yeah, make sure I have purple with purple. I forgot about that. Just like so. I'm just going to retouch that up a little bit. Okay. Now I can also take a bit of the purple right in the cherry where the extreme shadows are I can still add it, even though it's been burnished, it still lets me add more color. Right in here as well. And I'm not pushing very hard on this, I'm glazing. I'm just adding a very, very transparent layer of color. See? And right over this as well, I can cross hatch a little bit. This is that really, really dark part of the cherry. Cross hatching, think of the tic-tac-toe. See? Very, very dark. It's actually even darker than this. There we go. There's a little reflective light there, so I don't want to cover that up. Okay, I'm going to take that red-orange now, and I'm just going to burnish that together. The burnishing as well just makes the colors a lot more intense. Depending on what you burnish with. If you were to burnish with a brown, then the colors wouldn't be so intense. I'm going to go with the medium red now. There we go. All right. So now at this point, it's just to go over it. I'm going to go with that deep red. Just going to go over and just now touch up here and there areas that I need to just kind of finalize. Just looking around. That outside edge needs to be darker, like so. This one too, I lost that line there, that needs to be darker, like so. Just really refining, which is what you do when you paint as well. We just refine, refine, refine. I'm just going to put a little bit of a dark right here. This is that deepest red. A little bit of highlight on the bottom. Is that a highlight? Yeah, it is actually. It's going to go around. A little bit of a highlight there like so. And that's about it. And just basically the whole thing, the whole key. The biggest piece of advice I can give you is just sharp pencils. Do it in layers, and eventually everything just kind of comes together. I'm going to do one more thing though. I'm going to intensify that green a little bit more. I'm using that middle green just in certain areas, which will look like it's really highlighted. Green and red go extremely well together because they're opposites on the color wheel, so they're naturally contrasting. There we go. It's going to even this out. There we are. And if you still need to deepen stuff up a little bit, then just come through and just, you know, add some darks. There's a really dark dusty green in here. I'm gonna take that, or you could use brown just to add a little bit in here and in below the stem. You couldn't see what I was doing there. Okay, go back through the darks here, zigzag. Whoops, broke the lid there. Here we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around with my eraser, just clean up all my edges, and then sign my piece. All right. I didn't get too much dust on my hands. You can see, oh, see that? See how dirty they're here? That's just from me not paying attention. If you have cotton gloves, that actually will work out really well. But you should still put a piece of paper underneath. Tracing paper is really good. There we go. So once you've got everything erased, and now I'm just basically going to sign it. Now, I like to typically sign myself using a color that's already in the painting, and I think I'm probably going to choose the green. The darker the greens, and I'll just sign it. Oh, I can just sign it right here. I can sign it here. Purple would have been nice too. So there we go. So I've got this all finished. Now, to actually finish this piece, if you wanted to frame it, like practice quite a bit with it, but basically to frame it up, what you're going to do is you're going to put, it's preferable if you can put a layer of Spectrafix on it, or some type of workable fixative. The Spectrafix is what I recommend for the younger students because it can be used indoors and it's non-toxic. Otherwise, the Krylon workable fixative is great for in between, and then the actual, the final finish before you put it, let's say, in a portfolio or into a frame. But this is meant to be mounted on, let's say, another piece of paper, like rice paper, and then the whole thing then goes into a frame behind glass. If you are a student watching this and you're putting this in a portfolio, you do have to put fixative on it. Okay, and then just use pH balanced acid-free tape on the back to adhere it to your actual portfolio page. So I hope that you enjoyed this workshop, and you'll be able to find a list, so you didn't really need to take notes of what supplies I used. There'll be a list at the end of the video of everything that I used to create the pair of cherries. Stay inspired.